Welcome to practice today, presented by SiriusXM. Ethan Greenberg and Eric Allen live here in Florham Park. So the Jets 1-1 entering the third week of the NFL season, 3 games in 11 days. And EA, the Jets' second performance against the Miami Dolphins, first of the season, did not go as well as the opening slate Monday night.
Yeah, they made it look easy against the Lions in that 48-17 rout in Detroit against Miami. They battled field position early, couple turnovers there in the first half, Greens, and all of a sudden it was 14-0. They tried playing catch up, scoring the game's final 12 points, but it was not to be. They fell to 1-1 overall, and Todd Bowles and the players echoed a similar sentiment in the locker room after that game, much like they did in Detroit, saying that, hey, we got to move on. And this week in particular, you have to move on because the Jets just finished their last major workout of the week. They're flying to Cleveland tomorrow. They're out there on the field Thursday night playing their third game. That means 19% of the Jets' regular season will be over by midnight Thursday.
That's crazy. That's crazy to think about. And this 3 games in 11 days, that's a tough slate for any player. And Jamal Adams said it's really about getting your body right. And I spoke to Spencer Long today. He said it's like cramming for a test because you have so much work they have to do in such a short amount of time. And one of the storylines in this week is involving the quarterbacks. One of them is not playing. That's the #1 overall pick in Baker Mayfield. Of course, back in April, many people believed that Sam Darnold would be in Cleveland and Baker Mayfield would be here as a member of the New York Jets. But in fact, it's quite the opposite. Sam Darnold's in the green and white, and Baker Mayfield, he's in the brown and orange.
I go back to March 21st. That was Sam Darnold's pro day. And at that point, Sam Darnold's parents sat with Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the Cleveland Browns. And everybody thought, or most pundits expected, this guy's definitely going #1 overall to the Browns. But during the pre-draft process, John Dorsey, Hugh Jackson, Todd Haley and company, they fell in love with Baker Mayfield, and sure enough, they took him with the #1 overall selection. But he hasn't played in the regular season. We're seeing some shots of him from preseason action because he did play at MetLife Stadium against the Giants, but he'll start week 3 on the sideline. I think most people think it's a matter of time before he takes over for Tyrod Taylor, but Tyrod Taylor's a consistent guy. He gives them a solid presence back there. Remember, he led the Buffalo Bills to the playoffs last season.
So Todd Bowles actually talked about Baker Mayfield because he was asked, what'd you think of Baker in the pre-draft process? He said, I liked him. He was a tough guy. He's gritty, but he went #1 overall. Darnold went #3 overall. And then the Browns, right after the Jets, had the 4th overall pick. They took Denzel Ward, the cornerback out of Ohio State, and he's off to a blazing start too.
Yeah, this 2018 draft, Jets fans and Browns fans could be looking back at this and saying this is the point where we turned our fortunes around. The Browns did not win a game last season, so they had the 1st and 4th overall selection in the draft following that Carson Wentz trade from a couple years ago, so they had some stockpiling, some early picks. And Ward came out in the season opener against Ben Roethlisberger and had 2 interceptions, so a hell of a way to start his NFL career. He went #4 overall, the rookie from Ohio State, and as we mentioned before, Baker Mayfield going #1 overall. Ward is a burner on the outside. They're going to try to disguise a lot of coverages against Sam Darnold. The last time Ward saw Sam Darnold was in a bowl game because USC finished their season against Ohio State. Unfortunately for Darnold, he didn't get the better of Ward there. Maybe you'll get the better of him Thursday.
Ward had 2 interceptions throughout his collegiate career. He had 2 in his NFL debut, so he's off to a pretty good start, adjusting nicely to life as a professional. So many storylines to watch throughout this game, but let's get into our matchups to watch. Who are you looking at?
I'm looking at Tyrod Taylor. The Cleveland Browns quarterback is very mobile. He's very agile. He can escape pressure. With all that being said, he's been sacked 10 times in 2 games. The Jets' pass rush comes into this game on fire. They had 4 interceptions of Ryan Tannehill last week, including Jamal Adams' 3rd of his career. Remember, the last time the Jets saw Tyrod Taylor was on a Thursday night game last season, of course, when he was a member of the Buffalo Bills. They had 7 sacks of Taylor in that ball game, so they have familiarity playing against him. You have to maintain edge discipline. You have to stay in your pass rush lanes. He will hold on to the ball at times, Greens, and they've had trouble protecting him here early this season. Joe Thomas, he's retired now, the future Hall of Fame tackle. So Terrelle Taylor so far this season, he's been going down a lot, and the Jets took him down a bunch of times, and probably their most complete game of the 2017 season.
What I really liked about what the Jets did against Terrelle Taylor last year in Buffalo is he's a mobile guy, so what did the Jets do? They collapsed the pocket so he couldn't even get out and really forcing Taylor to throw.
You might spy him, too, this week. You might have one of your middle linebackers, maybe like a Darren Lee. You could use him to spy. I think Brandon Copeland has really stepped up for the Jets so far, starting in the place of Josh Martin, and we'll get to the injury report later. But Copeland started the first 2 games for the Jets. He got his first career full sack last week. We mentioned Jamal Adams. Henry Anderson's been giving this team a lift up front as well. So I think the Jets have a clear matchup advantage in terms of them getting to the quarterback and the Browns trying to protect Taylor.
Terrelle Taylor's had some success against the Jets for his career. 6 games, he's 4-2. He's completed 64% of his passes, only averaging about 191 yards a game, though. But my matchup to watch is the Browns pass rush, but particularly Myles Garrett, the #1 overall pick from the 2017 draft, against this Jets offensive line. Myles Garrett played his first professional game coming off of an injury last season against the Jets. In Week 5, he had 2 sacks. He has 2 sacks so far this season, and this guy's an absolute animal. If you watched him in Hard Knocks, you know he's the real deal, and I think that the Jets offensive line is really preparing for Myles Garrett, even though he doesn't lead the Browns in sacks. But this Jets offensive line, but it doesn't get any easier after facing Robert Quinn and Cameron Wake against the Miami Dolphins. They combined for 1 sack, and Garrett this week, and then we'll talk about the Jaguars next week. But we got to focus on this matchup, because if the Jets can control the trenches on offense, they have a very good chance on moving the ball.
Well, you got to have some balance offensively. I think that's one thing that Todd Bowles talked about after the game. We need some more balance. They weren't able to get that run game going against the Dolphins. We saw Darnold have some success through the air, but like I mentioned before, it's tough when you fall behind by 20 points in the National Football League. So this week, the Jets is going to be key for them to get Bilal Powell, to get Isaiah Crowell going against a fast defense, a relentless defense. And let me tell you something, that Cleveland crowd is going to be energized, because like I mentioned before, they easily could be 2-0. In that first game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, they tied. We've seen 2 ties in the NFL so far this season, which is very unusual. But Cleveland is a much improved team.
Cleveland's strength is really their defense, and we talked about Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward. Well, Sam Darnold spoke to the media earlier this week. He talked about the Browns' defense, and particularly Myles Garrett.
What have you seen from Greg Williams' defense there in Cleveland? I mean, they look like they're pretty talented, but what kind of things do they like to do? What have you seen thus far?
Yeah, I mean, they're very sound in what they do. Their defensive backs are very sound in their coverage, and they play man pretty well. So it's going to be a great challenge for us, and we're looking forward to it.
They're a team that obviously hasn't won too much the last couple of years. So when you play a desperate team like that, are they a little bit more dangerous when a team is really that close to winning and just haven't been able to get it?
I think every team in the NFL is dangerous. Every team on every given week has a chance to win. So that's how I'm looking at it. I'm really looking at it as just the next opponent. What does that defense do that poses a problem for us, or what can we do to pose a problem for them is kind of how I look at it, just scheme-wise. So I don't really look at that kind of stuff.
How dangerous is Myles Garrett?
Very dangerous. I mean, Myles Garrett's a great player. I think he's one of the best players in the league, and I think we're going to be ready for him. But at the same time, he's going to make plays, and we can't go in the tank if he has a sack here and there. He's a great player. He's going to make plays. We know that. We just got to continue to stay positive and stay consistent with what we're doing.
So do you think you might end up there during the draft process?
with them being the number one?
Yeah, I mean, I thought, I could have ended up there or, several other teams. So,
Right.
But during that whole draft process, I honestly haven't even thought about it, since I got drafted by the Jets. But, yeah, I mean, with them having the one pick, it was, I guess a good chance that I might have gone there. So I was thinking about it before, but, ever since the draft, I haven't really thought about it.
Is there any part of you that would like to show them what they missed out on?
No, I'm just going to go out there and play ball.
Welcome back to practice today, presented by SiriusXM. Ethan Greenberg and Eric Allen live here from Florham Park.
How about this weather? By the way, it was raining here all day in Florham Park. It's absolutely beautiful right now.
It's turned a corner, you could say, and hopefully the Jets do the same on Thursday night following their Sunday's performance. And last year, this is actually the third straight year that the Jets and Browns are playing in Cleveland, and this is a completely different Browns team than last season. I know it's only been 1 year, but a completely different team. You said this team could be 2-0. Well, outside of Terrelle Pryor, there's a different cast of characters that he's playing with.
Well, his number one target is Jarvis Juice Landry. 12 receptions, 175 yards receiving here in the early going, and then the guy who is going to get the lion's share of work in that offensive backfield is a former San Francisco 49er and other former Ohio State product. That's Carlos Hyde. He's a north and south guy. They haven't been able to really get him going too much so far early in the season. You're watching Juice Landry. He's going to be targeted probably the most. You can put that down. You can write that down in your notes right now, Greens. He is a guy who can make plays all over the field. Another energy player. Big pickup for the Browns this offseason. He is someone that they're counting on, I think, in Cleveland, not for just his offensive production, but help them in terms of changing the culture there. And Hyde, to me, is more of a north and south guy. He's going to get downhill in a hurry. But when you look at that run game so far, I think the numbers are interesting because the Browns are like about fifth in the NFL in rushing.
Correct.
But you got to give Terrelle Pryor a large chunk of those yards. So that means discipline, especially on the boots and the RPOs that the Jets saw last week from Ryan Tannehill. That's going to help them prepare this week against an even more mobile guy in Taylor.
So the Jets are already familiar with Terrelle Pryor. You talked about Jarvis Landry. He used to play for the Miami Dolphins, so the Jets are familiar with him too. Against the Jets, he's had some success. 8 games, he has 610 yards and 3 touchdowns. So not a crazy amount, but a decent amount. And you talked about Carlos Hyde. This is a very interesting stat, is that you said the Browns are 5th in the league in offense, which is true. Well, Carlos Hyde.
Rushing offense.
Rushing offense. Carlos Hyde only averages 2.8 yards a carry. And who knows, maybe that's because of Joe Thomas, or some part of it is because Joe Thomas is no longer there. In fact, the Browns started with an undrafted rookie left tackle named Desmond Harrison as the heir apparent to Joe Thomas. So EA talked about that's his matchup to watch, the Jets D-line and the Browns O-line. Well, I'm reiterating that because Hyde gets his fair share of carries, doesn't get a whole lot of yards, but not only is it a new cast of characters.
He's been in the end zone twice so far this year, and he's got 105 yards on the ground.
He's a good running back, and last year he had 938 yards and 8 touchdowns. So he's a very good running back, but on the flip side here is someone that used to be a running back for the Browns. He's now a running back with the New York Jets. He's the Jets' leading running back in terms of carries, rushes, and touchdowns. That's Isaiah Crowell.
The Crow is flying back to Cleveland. Listen, he had a productive start to his career with the Browns. I think, in fact, he had 21 touchdowns in his 4 seasons there. Now he'll get a chance to go home. And you know it's always special for a guy making that visit back to a place where he had some success during his career. I think he's impressed people with his explosion, Greens. We knew that he was a tough guy, but I think his acceleration to the hole and his vision have been impressive here early. Obviously, he broke out against the Lions, like I mentioned before. He had a couple nice carries against the Miami Dolphins, but the Jets weren't able to really sustain that rush attack against the Cleveland Browns. But he's not, against the Miami Dolphins, but he's not alone in terms of guys going back to face the Browns.
That's right. Terrelle Pryor, the Jets wide receiver, he's had a pretty good year so far, and I know that he's made some headlines this week because when Sam Darnold threw an interception against the Dolphins, Pryor said, "That's on me. his Darnold's second pick. To clarify, Pryor was the intended receiver, and Xavier Howard picked Darnold off in the back of the end zone. And Pryor said, "That's on me." But this is a homecoming for Pryor, also because he spent 2 years in Cleveland. He only played 3 games in his first year there. And so 2016 is when he blew up. Josh McCown was a member of the Browns then, and that's when Terrelle Pryor made his name as a wide receiver.
Well, yeah, that was his only 1,000-yard season in the National Football League, and that's why he got a free agent deal with the Washington Redskins. Unfortunately, he was banged up last year. Just to follow up what you said before, I was impressed with the way both Darnold and Pryor handled the interception, because they put the blame on themselves. So we're not pointing the fingers. And Todd Bowles said it this week that here's a 44-yard reception from Pryor against the Dolphins that actually set the Jets up for a scoring opportunity right before halftime. Unfortunately, they weren't able to cash in. But those are the kind of big plays Pryor is looking for. He said this week, I want to get back to being violent with the football on the run. So after he makes those catches, he wants to be violent with the football, and he can make some hay with the yak, just like Quincy Enunwa. So far this season for the Jets, the second leading receiver for the green and white and Sam Darnold, of course, is Pryor. Enunwa, I think he's got 13 receptions in 2 games so far.
What I really like about Pryor is that he's a long strider, so you may not think he's running very fast, but he's actually very, very fast. And here's a fun fact for you. In 2016, his best statistical year, he had 48 first down receptions for the Cleveland Browns. That's someone that Sam Darnold, I would assume, would develop chemistry with throughout the season. But earlier this week, Olivia Landis caught up with Terrelle Pryor and talked about his homecoming to Cleveland.
Inside the Jets locker room, Olivia Landis joined by wide receiver Terrelle Pryor. Terrelle, you'll be returning to a former team, the Cleveland Browns. What is it going to be like to be back in that atmosphere for you this Thursday?
Dog pound, one of the greats. I love the atmosphere there. It's going to be electric, I believe. I mean, they have a great team. And, we'll have our hands full like every Sunday, every Thursday or Monday whenever we play. Every game's a new day, and we just got to come ready to play.
Physically, since it's been such a quick turnaround for the Jets, how has this team prepared for 2 games in less than 7 days?
Good thing is we're young. We have a great group of guys, charismatic. We kind of let things go. We're here ready to work. We're grinding today, and that looks very good to me. Just from looking, from somebody looking inside and being on the team. We guys kind of let it go, and we're back together, as a group, and that's how it has to be. Move to the next day, move to the next play, and that's all it takes,
You've had a few receptions so far in the first 2 games from Sam. How do you feel the chemistry is going between you two?
I think it's great. I'm getting back into it, and I'm starting to play and run violently. That's something that I talk about a lot. Is I want to run violent. I want to look violent on the field, and I think I'm getting back to that. Being better, better than I've ever been. So I just got to continue to get better, and continue to be the best team player I can be.
Thanks, Terrelle.
Thank you.
Welcome back to practice today, presented by SiriusXM. Ethan Greenberg and Eric Allen wrapping things up here in Florham Park as the Jets are almost ready to take on the Browns in a couple days here. Well, EA, some injury news. Marcus May, game time decision for Thursday's affair, but Josh Martin and Neil Sterling, both who suffered concussions, both out.
Yeah, Martin's been out for a couple of weeks now. He suffered that concussion initially against the New York Giants in the 3rd preseason game. Unfortunately, Sterling went down in the home opener against the Dolphins. And Bowles said today that, hey, I'm not ready to rule Marcus May out. He'll be a game-time decision. In his place, Doug Middleton has been the guy. Like we mentioned before, in place of Josh Martin, you got Brandon Copeland there. And then you think about the tight end position. Maybe Jordan Leggett gets some more reps for the Jets here Thursday.
For the Browns, on the flip side, just some players that stick out that did not practice on Tuesday. Christian Kirksey, their star linebacker, Emmanuel Ogbah, a starting defensive end, and safety Demarius Randall. So if those guys are out, the Jets could also be facing a banged-up Browns team.
Yeah, I think the Jets, considering it's early in the season, this is the time when you want to have 3 games in 11 days. And Pryor mentioned it to Olivia during that interview right there that the Jets have a young team. So, and a guy like Jamal Adams, the Energizer Bunny that he is, he'll get everybody going Thursday. But all in all, for the health at this point of the season after a couple games, the Jets are in relatively good shape.
Okay, it's time to get into the 2-minute drill again. Jets-Browns, Thursday night at 8:20 EA. If the Jets want to have success Thursday, you got to get after Terrelle Taylor.
Yeah, Taylor's a guy this team knows awfully well. The last time the Jets faced him in regular season play, he was a Buffalo Bill. They had 7 sacks during a complete effort. You have to maintain your pass rush discipline. The edge guys have to set it. You have to get your hands up, and you want to swarm. Taylor's a guy who will hold on to the football. The stat that jumps out to me here early in the 2018 season, he's been sacked 10 times in all, and the Jets' pass rush comes into this game hot. They had 4 of Ryan Tannehill. I think they're going to have chances to make some plays Thursday.
The Jets really have to protect the football. Sam Darnold's thrown 3 picks in 2 games, but this Browns defense, they'll bite you if you let them.
Greg Williams is going to attack. He's going to send pressure. There's a lot of speed back there for the Browns. They're also going to try to disguise their coverages. No surprises there. The Browns so far early in the season, 8 takeaways. That leads the National Football League. The Jets have 5 giveaways. They have to protect the football. No doubt about that. You think about last week against Miami, they got into an early hole because of the giveaways. Against Cleveland, you cannot give them an extra oomph, I would say, in this game, an extra jump. You have to protect the football.
So Thursday will mark 3 games in 11 days, but 2 of which will be under the bright lights. And if you're the Jets, you got to embrace the stage.
You have to embrace the national stage. Let's just look at this on a macro level. The Jets have an opportunity to get to 2-1 with a 2-0 road record. Then you have 10 days to prepare for one of the AFC's best in the Jacksonville Jaguars. Conversely, you lose this ball game, you will be 1-2 and have to prepare for a Jacksonville team that a lot of people consider perhaps the NFL's best roster. So the big difference here, Greens, you got a chance to smart yourself real early after that victory against the Miami, you have a chance to get back on the right track here early in the season, then get a breath and get ready to resume the first quarter of action.
Again, Jets-Browns Thursday night. Ethan Greenberg and Eric Allen, that's all we have from practice today. But you want to watch the best pregame show in the country, you got to see this guy and Anthony Beck, 620, NewYorkJets.com on YouTube. We'll see you Thursday night.
Yeah, I saw. Yep.